You read that title correctly. It turns out that self-esteem is not a predictive factor to get women into relationships. For men, on the other hand, there is a significant effect of self-esteem. So in last week's video, I was talking about what are the cultural messages that we need as a society to get us back together. More and more of us choosing to be single, more and more of you women choosing to be single rather than be in the dating pool. So what do we need to do? How do we need to culture men and how do we need to culture women so that more and more of us are choosing relationship? Well, I was doing a lot of research on this and I came across a study that I think is going to help us answer that question. The study was out of Greece and they studied over 1,000 participants in their self-esteem versus relationship status patterns. So the study looked at involuntarily single, as in people who don't want to be single, people who are lonely, versus people who are either in a relationship or single by choice. How does self-esteem affect which bucket you end up in? And then what factors contribute to self-esteem? The study reads, and I quote, "Using an online sample of 986 Greek-speaking participants, we found that self-esteem had a large and significant effect on predicting marital status for men. Higher scores were associated with higher probability to be in a relationship or single by choice rather than lonely, involuntarily single. However, self-esteem had no effect on marital status for women." Very interesting. So while self-esteem might get women into better relationships, it wasn't getting women into more relationships. The study continues, listen to this, a 1-unit increase in self-esteem was associated with more than 200% chance to be in a relationship rather than lonely. 200% for a 1-unit increase. Now there is a caveat to this. A 1-unit increase in self-esteem was also associated with a more than 600% chance to be single by choice. This is all relating to men. In other words, if we take 4 lonely men and we raise all 4 of their self-esteem, one of those guys will choose to be in a relationship with it, and 3 will be single by choice. Now you might find that disheartening, but I actually think that's really good news because not only is that 4 lonely men who are now having higher self-esteem, which means all 4 of them, single or not, are treating women better, but inevitably those 4 people are going to increase the size of the attractive dating pool. They're going to increase the availability of men, which means you have more choices as a woman in men who treat you well, more choices in men you find attractive, and that will lead to you being able to walk away more easily and you being able to have options, which ultimately means some of these guys are going to go, oh, I don't want to lose a good woman, maybe I will commit. So the more men's self-esteem we raise, the more options we have and the better women are treated. This is good news all around and it's a great clue as to what culture we need to be sharing with men to get them into relationships and for them to be the type of men that you actually want to date and that you want to be with and that you want to choose. So the question then became, how do we raise men's self-esteem? And the study looked at this. So this is fascinating. They took 14 factors and the study looked at 14 characteristics of men and found that only 3 raised self-esteem. All 3 were significant effects on self-esteem and significant predictors of whether the men would be in a relationship or single by choice. I'm going to read all of these out and see if you can guess which 3 are the big determinants of self-esteem. Pleasing disposition, sociability and social skills, refinement and neatness, good finances, chastity, dependable character, emotional stability and maturity, desire for home and children, favorable social status, good looks, ambition and industriousness, good health, education and intelligence, good cook and housekeeper. Can you guess which 3 of those contributed to men's self-esteem and therefore their likelihood to be in a relationship? Good looks, education and intelligence, and thankfully, emotional stability and maturity. Of everything I read out there, those were the 3 factors that had significant effects on self-esteem and therefore the likelihood of the man to be in a relationship. You know what's also interesting when we think about these? Good looks is very related to the physical, education and intelligence is very related to the financial, and emotional stability and maturity is very related to relationships. So we've got health, wealth, and relationships. 3 strategies to raise men's self-esteem covering every area of life so that they can be proud as men and be great partners for you. So in my last video, and I know it ruffled a few feathers, I talked about the cultural conditioning that we need to be sharing with women to help them be more in relationship and get relationship. And I want to talk about the same thing in men because, again, I see minority messaging that doesn't work for the majority of us being promoted as mainstream. So what sort of messaging do we need to be giving to men that they'll actually listen to that's not minority but that works for the majority? In the past, men have always been just provide and protect, physically protect, financially provide, that's your role as a man. Well, women aren't copying that anymore. Women want emotional capacity. But the problem is the sort of stick has swung so far to the other way that there's a lot of messaging about men to be really emotional and just be in your feelings all the time. And not only do men hate that messaging, but women mostly don't want it either. Tell me the truth. Most of you, do you want a man who's more emotional than you? We both know the answer. And so we're seeing this swing back then to toxic messaging on the other side, which is figures like Andrew Tate, minority, who are just saying, get rich, get a body, and then you can treat women and do whatever you want in life. Just screw a bunch of 18-year-olds. And that is the people who are influencing a lot of young men right now. So we need a message that men can actually be proud of that helps them be contributors in all three of these areas, physical, financial, and emotional. So here's what I think that needs to be. I think this is the messaging we need to be putting out there to men. And I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments if you disagree. Number one, I think we need to be encouraging men to love and appreciate women for all that they are and all that they do. Reminding young men that you would be nothing without women. Number two, I think we need to be encouraging men to be proud contributors. You are a man, you are born to provide and protect, ultimately to contribute, to financially provide and protect, to physically provide and protect. You don't have to be making 8 figures, you don't even have to be making 7 figures, but you need to be doing something. You need to be contributing in some way. Women are producing babies. They're producing the next generation. So what are you doing? If a man's not contributing, he's not going to feel like a man. And we can see the effects in self-esteem. We can see the effects in biology. A man needs education and intelligence. And while you can't change looks, you can go to the gym, you can learn a martial art, you can do things to stay healthy. It makes you attractive to women and it raises your self-esteem, which ultimately gets you in relationships. So I think we need to be reminding and encouraging men that contributing, providing and protecting is part of your DNA and you should be proud of that. And I think number 3, we need to be reminding men that you're also an emotional contributor now. And you're the first generation of men where women really care about this. In fact, they're very happy to be single if you can't provide in this third area. So for example, I think we need to be encouraging men who are under the age of 30 to be building relationship skills. Look, 20 to 30 is always going to be a man's best financial time to set up his prospects, to set up his providing ability for the rest of his life. There's no question. But you also want to be using those years in the background to learn relationship skills. Break up, get broken up with, set boundaries, have conflict, go through difficult times with a partner, figure out what you're compatible with. You're going to need those skills, especially if you want to contribute to society one day as a father and of course as a partner. And I think for men, especially men who want families, once they turn 30, we need to be encouraging young men to look for a partner at that age. You have a few more years than women, but don't wait until you're 40. Because if you wait until you're 40, you will not have the relationship skills to emotionally provide in this modern age. So if you're a man and you want a family, start looking for that partner when you turn 30. You don't have to find her straight away, but get in the habit of looking around, look for healthy women. As I say, if you leave this stuff till late as a man, you're not going to be able to emotionally provide. And let me tell you, the divorce rate in 55 plus women is skyrocketing because women are expecting emotional providers as well now. And you need to be a man and have that. So start practicing these skills before you turn 30 and start focusing. If you want a family, start looking for that partner after 30. And finally, I truly believe this one. We need to be culturing men that masculinity is defined by contribution. Your contribution to society physically, financially, and emotionally. And if you're financially rich and you're physically big and you think you're a high value guy and then your emotional contribution is lying, is cheating, is causing unnecessary trauma to the women and children around you and in society, if you're doing all these other contributions and that's your emotional contribution, then you should be ashamed of yourself as a man. A true man lives with integrity and he doesn't provide financially and physically while creating unnecessary trauma on an emotional level. Finally, I think the truth is we need to be sharing with young men that your integrity won't always be liked. Some of you might not even like what I'm saying in this video, and that's fine. But better to hurt someone, to hurt a woman with your integrity, than to harm her with your lies. There is no excuse for being a contributor in 2 other areas of life and then being an absolute failure or only contributing trauma in the 3rd area. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments. We've got physical contribution, financial contribution, and emotional contribution, and they pretty closely relate to those 3 areas of self-esteem that are now scientifically proven to get men into relationships, and certainly high self-esteem men are going to treat women better overall. So I think it can only be a good thing for society if we push these messages. But you let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button with the little bell, and I'd love to see you in the next video.